Hi, it's Miss Lisa. Today's Thursday, and it is our STEM activity today. We're actually going to make these bird feeders. You can either make yours a bird feeder or a bird bath if you have a container that you want to put in it. We're going to cut some branches and weave the outside of it. I put pine branches on the inside center part of mine, and then I've put moss on it to hold my bird seed. Now, it's gorgeous. It turned out so pretty. I love it. If I decide that the birds aren't going to eat off of it, I might cut my strings off and actually use it for a centerpiece on my dining room table for a little while for fall. The pine branches make it smell so good because it's all piney and fresh. The moss, not so crazy about putting that in my house because it does have dirt underneath, so you know there's things living in there. So I might not put the moss in it if I bring it into my house. But this is what we're going to make today. It is going to take you a little bit of time, and you'll be able to tell by the way the video looks, because it is chopped up a little bit so that I could put all of the parts in it. So it did take me a little time to do it. So you're going to want to plan for some time. But it is a fun and a very beautiful activity once you get done. You need. This time of year, it's really dry now. A lot of the water places for the birds in the woods around where I live at have dried up now. And we make sure that our bird feeder or our bird bath is full of fresh water every day because they bathe in it and they drink it, and we have a lot of activity there. So if you decide you want to make yours a bird bath instead of a bird feeder, there's just one little minor thing to do to that. So I've picked a bunch of stems or tree branches, and I have a separate video clip to show you which ones to get. Okay, we want to find some green branches, and we want them to be relatively thin. We want them to be green so that they're more bendable, because we're going to shape them into a basket type and weave them, so they need to be flexible to do that. The dead limbs are not, they just snap. So I have this bush in my yard. It's a rather large bush, and I'm going to try to see if you can't get it, see if I can do this. This is the type of limb that I want, and if you look at it, it's greener, and it will actually bend a lot actually without breaking. So I'm going to cut some limbs off of this particular bush. So that's what you're looking for. I'm also going to get some smaller limbs like this that are thinner, and just get a variety of them. The bush isn't that bad, so it'll be pretty easy to cut some off of it. I'm not picking this one right here because if you look at that, ooh, that's a raspberry bush, and that has pickers on it, so we don't want to put that in the bird feeder. So I'm going to cut some limbs off of this one. Once you have got the branches that you need and you've cleaned the majority of the leaves off of them, I'm going to go through the material that we're going to use. So we're going to use the green branches that are very bendable, so we can bend them around and weave them together. You need some sort of a form. I'm going to use this bucket right here to shape the roundness of my weaving, so I have something to weave around it so that it can be round. I also have a container that I'm going to make sure that fits in the middle of it in case I decide that I'm going to turn it into a bird bath. It's just a dish, it's just a pie pan, an old pie pan I have that I'm going to use. I also have some moss that I found along the woods. I pulled it up. It does have dirt on the bottom, but it's not a big deal. Just some moss that I can put in the bottom part of my bird feeder. If you don't have moss, that's fine. You can use some other things. I also took some clippings from my pine trees. I have a couple different kinds of pine trees. So I thought I might be able to lay this on the bottom under the moss to hold the moss in place on the bottom once I've got my weaving done, and then lay my moss on top of it, and it should hold it in place fairly well. The moss will eventually hopefully die. I don't really want it to live because if it lives, it'll rot out my bird feeder, but it's okay. I also have some string I have these that I use to cut with. Whatever you use to cut your limbs off or your branches off, you're going to still need it to trim them back to pick the ones you decide you're going to use. I also have some twisty ties in case I need those instead of the yarn, just mostly to temporarily hold the first few sticks around the bucket so that they stay in place until I can weave the rest of it around there. So we're going to get started. Okay, when you're getting ready to work your first piece around, it's going to take a little time. You want to work the wood and gently bend the wood. Mine's pretty green, but the bigger part will snap, and if you look right here, my wood is snapped right here on one side, but the other side is okay. So I'm just going to keep working around it. The bigger part seems to snap a little bit more than the smaller part, so just keep bending and bending. Another part where that broke. It didn't break all the way through, so I'm going to try to leave it on there and see if I can't use it. Once you get it bent pretty good, if you look at it, it's pretty round. Okay, so I tried using the string and the twisty ties to hold the ends of my stick together to get started, and it was too hard. So you're going to need some duct tape. So I'm going to find the end of my stick like right here and put the duct tape on there before I start bending. Then I'm going to turn my bucket upside down and twist my stick around there. And if I can get my duct tape unstuck. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be able to stick to the other stick. So I'm going to put it underneath of the other stick, pull it really tight because I want it to be super tight on there, and then just wrap it around to hold that first piece in place. There. Alright? So it actually will slide off, but it's in a circle, taped on this side, like that. So I'm going to keep it around my bucket because I want it to form around there. And then I'm just going to take this and turn my bucket and just keep going over and under the first stick until I run out of stick. Now if you have to leave a little bit of the end sticking out, you can do that like this. And then when we get all the way around, we can start tucking all those little corners in. So now you're going to want to do this with all the rest of the sticks until you get it the size that you want. As you can see, it took me some time to get it done, and it got a little too sunny in the space I was working, so I put my umbrella up so it would shade me a little bit. So once you get your circumference or the circle weaved around enough that it stays together pretty well, you can remove it from your thing, your bucket or your shaping container. Now you want to make sure that there's at least a little bit of depth to the circle. You don't want it to be flat and just big around unless that's how you want it. But you need to make sure that the hole is big enough for your container to fit in so that it will hold your water or your food. Now if you look at mine, mine's a little bit too big, but that's okay because that's partly why I cut some of the branches for the from the pine trees, because now I'm going to use the pine branches I cut, and I'm going to weave them in across the bottom of the or the center of the whatever you want to call it, the wreath or whatever, and then I'll weave those together in the center so that they will actually hold up the bucket, my container. And then I'm going to lay the moss on top. So I'm going to weave the pine needles in first. Alright, so I've been weaving the pine into the center part of my thing. And the best thing about the pine is that it's very flexible. So I can stick the harder part through a couple sticks in the outside and then just tuck all these up underneath or wherever so it holds everything in place really well, like that. You want to make sure that you put it through the sticks on the sides though, so that it'll hold on in there, like that. So now I have a nice bed of pine needles around my circle. I'm going to take my moss, which is about that big, and I'm just going to lay it in there. I want to push it down just a little bit so that it pushes down inside of the shape of my sticks, like that. Now really, I could probably not even put a container in here, which is probably what I will do. If I'm just going to use it as a bird feeder, I would just put the bird seed up on top of here. They probably would pick through that and pretty quick, even if it's just the moss on there. Now if I was going to use the, do a bird bath, I would actually push it down in there a little bit better so that the bird bath container stuck down inside so it wouldn't stick up and they wouldn't tip it over, you know. So I might actually put that down and around there, down inside there, and then weave my pine needles around that. But since I'm using mine for a bird feeder because I do have a bird bath, I'm just going to leave mine like this. So this is what it looks like. And if you notice I have some sticks still sticking out, I think I'm just going to leave those like that. I think that the birds could actually perch on there when they're coming in to eat off the bird feeder. So now the last thing I'm going to do is tie on some string or some rope to make a hanger so I can hang it from a tree, because I don't want to hang it from my bird feeders because I already have regular bird feeders on those. So I might hang it on a regular bird feeder just to see if they will actually use it before I hang it in the woods. So I'm going to tie some string on there. For now, I'm just going to use this yarn, but eventually I'm going to go see if I can't find some twine or maybe some nylon rope. I just don't want it to be white. I just think it would stand out too much to be, I don't know, I just don't think it would look very good. So I'm going to put the string all the way down through it so that I can tie it all the way around my weaved wood. And actually that'll help it to hold the weaved wood together too, even though it's already pretty sturdy. So I want it to be about that long. Let's see if my wood cutters will cut that string. Probably not. Oh, I should have brought some scissors out here, I guess. Now if you noticed, my video is a little bit cut up a little bit. It took me some time to do this. This was not a fast activity. So you have to take your time with the weaving to make sure that you don't leave it too loose. I also got a little frustrated a couple times, so I actually took a little bit of a break in between because I couldn't get the sticks to work and then they wouldn't stick in there, so it did take some time. Okay, I only have 2 on there, but I'm going to tie it on 4 so it actually will hold its balance, so it will balance it out. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed making this one. It was a real stress reliever for part of it until I got frustrated, but it turned out beautiful. I love it. I hope the birds like it too. Okay, so I'm going to make my string as long as the other side. So I hope you enjoyed this activity for fall. I'm going to do a couple more for fall activities, for the STEM activities for the next couple weeks, since the weather's so nice and I can be outside to do stuff. Okay, this one's a little bit longer than that one. so I'm going to just tie a knot in this one. I'll just do it that way. Okay, so now I have it so that I can hang it, and it will hang, and I'll level it out when I hang it up. And then I'm going to put some bird seed right here, and we're going to see how that works out. Okay, I'm going to move one of my butterfly feeders, my original bird feeders that turned into butterfly feeders because the butterflies liked the fruit so well once it got a little bit rotten. The butterflies are just about done now. Most of them have cocooned for the winter. I'm going to hang up my bird feeder right here. I'm going to level it out a little bit so that it's level. We use 2 kinds of bird seed at my house. We don't use like really weird bird seed. We use black sunflower seeds. So I'm going to put some of those on there. Tipping that, it's dumping out. Oh. We have ground feeders, so I'm not too worried about spilling the bird seed because the ground birds will actually eat a lot of that that's spilled. So I'm going to put some of that on there. We also feed smaller birds, and this is thistle seed. This is for the really small birds. So I'm going to put a pretty good handful. I don't know if you can see that. Thistle seed is really small seed. This is for the really small birds like the finches and stuff. So I'm going to sprinkle some of that around. If you can hear them, they're talking to each other. They tell each other when something's going on out here with the bird feeders. Okay, well, I'll let you know how it goes. I hope yours turns out good too. Have a good day.